The lights in the engine room flickered like dying stars. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive quantum drive that had kept 50,000 people alive for the past 3 years. Now it was nothing more than a collection of twisted metal and broken dreams. "Come on, you piece of junk," Jake muttered, his hands working frantically with his tools. The wrench slipped from his greasy fingers and clattered to the floor. He picked it up and tried again, but deep down he knew it was hopeless. The explosion 2 days ago had destroyed the main power coupling. Without it, the ship would drift in space forever. The new Harmony had been humanity's greatest achievement. A massive colony ship carrying people from Earth to a new world in the Kepler system. They had traveled for 3 years across the empty darkness of space, dreaming of green fields and blue skies. Now those dreams were turning into nightmares. Jake heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Captain Alex Rodriguez walking into the engine room. The captain's face looked tired and worried. His uniform was wrinkled, and his usually neat hair was messy. "How bad is it, Jake?" Alex asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Jake shook his head. "It's dead, sir. The quantum field generator is completely fried. Even if I could fix it, we don't have the right parts. We're stuck out here." Alex nodded. Slowly. He had been expecting this news, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. "How long do we have?" "Life support will last maybe 2 weeks if we're lucky," Jake replied. "The backup systems are working, but they won't hold forever. We're using too much power keeping everyone alive." The captain stared at the broken engine. 50,000 people were counting on them. Families with children, elderly couples, young adults who had left everything behind for a chance at a new life. They were all going to die in the cold emptiness of space. "I'll send out another distress signal," Alex said finally. "Maybe someone will hear it." Jake nodded, but they both knew it was unlikely. They were in the middle of nowhere, light years from the nearest star system. The chances of another ship finding them were almost zero. As the captain left, Jake went back to work. He couldn't fix the main engine, but maybe he could make the backup systems last a little longer. Every hour mattered now. Every minute was precious. 3 decks above, in the cultural center of the ship, Lisa Park sat alone with her violin. The large room was usually filled with people attending concerts, art shows, and community meetings. Now it was empty except for her. Most people were staying in their rooms, too scared to come out. Lisa had been the ship's official musician. She gave concerts twice a week and taught violin lessons to the children. Music had always been her life, even before the journey to space. Her grandfather had made her violin with his own hands back on Earth. It was over 100 years old. Crafted from wood that came from an ancient forest, she lifted the violin to her shoulder and began to play. The melody was sad and beautiful, a piece she had learned as a child. The notes echoed through the empty room and traveled through the ship's communication system. Even though she didn't know it, her music was being heard throughout the new Harmony.in. The medical bay, Dr. Elena Vasquez was treating a patient with a broken arm when she heard the violin music coming through the speakers. She paused in her work and listened. The melody was so beautiful, it made her eyes water. Her patient, an elderly man named Danny Clark, smiled weakly. "That's Lisa playing," Danny said. "She's been playing every day since the accident." "Makes me feel a little better about things," Elena nodded. She had noticed that people seemed calmer when Lisa played her violin. Maybe it was just the beauty of the music, or maybe it reminded them of home. Either way, it was helping people cope with their fear. Back in the engine room, Jake was checking the power readings when he heard the music. It was coming through the ship's internal communication system, filling the engine room with its sad melody. For a moment, he stopped working and just listened. There was something strange about the music. Jake had always been good with machines and electronics, and he noticed that the power readings seemed to change slightly when Lessa played certain notes. It was probably just his imagination, but the quantum field sensors showed small fluctuations that matched the rhythm of the violin. Jake shook his head. He was probably just tired and seeing things that weren't there. The ship's sensors were damaged anyway, so the readings couldn't be trusted. He went back to work, but he kept listening to the music. In her room, Maria Santos was trying to comfort her two young children. They were scared and asking questions she couldn't answer. When would they reach their new home? Why had the ship stopped moving? Were they going to be okay? Maria didn't know what to tell them. She held them close and hummed along with Lisa's violin music. The melody seemed to make the children feel safer. Her daughter, only 6 years old, fell asleep in her arms. The music continued to play throughout the ship. Lisa didn't know that. Thousands of people were listening to her. She played because she didn't know what else to do. The violin was her voice when words weren't enough. It was her way of saying that even in the darkest times, there was still beauty in the world. As the hours passed, Jake continued his work in the engine room. He tried everything he could think of, but nothing worked. The quantum drive remained dead. The ship continued to drift through space, carrying its cargo of hopes and dreams further away from any chance of rescue. But something strange was happening. The quantum field sensors kept showing those small fluctuations whenever Lisa played her violin. Jake finally decided to investigate. He pulled up the sensor readings on his computer and compared them to recordings of Lisa's music. The patterns matched. Somehow, the violin music was creating tiny changes in the ship's quantum field. It shouldn't have been possible. Musical instruments were just mechanical devices that created sound waves. They couldn't affect quantum fields or space-time. Jake stared at the data on his screen. He was probably making a mistake. The sensors were damaged, and he was tired from working for days without sleep. But the patterns were there, clear as day. Every time Lisa played a particular note, the quantum field responded. He saved the data and decided to show it to Dr. Vasquez in the morning. Maybe she could explain what was happening. For now, he just listened to the beautiful, sad music and wondered if there might be more to it than anyone realized. Captain Veltar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Windcatcher, and watched the strange readings on his screen. His reptilian eyes moved quickly as he studied the data. The distress signal had been weak, but it was definitely there. Some kind of primitive ship was sending out a call for help. Another lost species, he said to his second-in-command, Kethmer. How many does that make this year? Kethmer checked his records. 17, sir. Most of them barely had the technology to leave their home planets. Veltar nodded. The Zephyrian Collective had been exploring space for thousands of years. They had met hundreds of different alien species, but most of them were still using basic technology. The Zephyrians usually helped them fix their ships and sent them on their way. It was considered a good deed, nothing more. Set course for the distress signal, Veltar ordered. Let's see what kind of trouble they've gotten themselves into this time. The Windcatcher was a beautiful ship, sleek and silver like a giant fish, swimming through space. It moved through the darkness much faster than any human ship could travel. Within hours, they had reached the location of the distress signal. There it is, sir, Kethmer said, pointing at the main screen. It's bigger than I expected. Veltar looked at the massive human colony ship drifting in space. It was crude and ugly compared to Zephyrian ships, but it was definitely large. How many life forms are aboard? Scanning now, Kethmer replied. Sir, I'm reading approximately 50,000 beings. They appear to be carbon-based, similar to the Terran species we catalogued last year. 50,000? Veltar was surprised. Most primitive ships carried maybe a few hundred beings at most. What are they doing with so many people on one ship? Before Kethmer could answer, something strange appeared on their sensors. The ship was broadcasting some kind of audio signal along with the distress call. The signal was complex and had mathematical patterns that their computers couldn't immediately identify. What is that sound? Veltar asked. Kethmer adjusted his instruments. It appears to be some form of communication, sir, but it's unlike anything we've seen before. The patterns are very complex, with mathematical sequences that seem almost artistic. Veltar listened as the sound came through their speakers. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. The melody rose and fell like waves on an ocean. He had never heard anything like it. Play it through the analysis computer, he ordered. I want to know what this is. While the computer worked, Veltar opened a communication channel to the human ship. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian ship Windcatcher. We have received your distress signal. Do you require assistance? On the New Harmony, Captain Alex Rodriguez was in the communication room when the alien message came through. His heart jumped with excitement and fear. They had been hoping for rescue, but contact with an alien species was something nobody had been prepared for. This is Captain Alex Rodriguez of the human colony ship New Harmony, he replied. We have suffered engine failure and our life support systems are failing. We have 50,000 people aboard who need help. Veltar was impressed that the humans could speak in the universal trade language. Most primitive species couldn't communicate at all when first contacted. We will help you, he said. Prepare for boarding. We are sending a team to assess your situation. Alex felt relief flood through him. They were going to be rescued. He immediately called Jake in the engine room and Dr. Vasquez in the medical bay to tell them the news. Aliens? Jake said, his voice full of disbelief. Real aliens are coming. To help us? That's right, Alex replied. Get ready to show them what's wrong with our engines. Maybe they can fix what we can't. Meanwhile, Lisa was still playing her violin in the cultural center. She had no idea that her music was being heard by alien ears. The sad melody continued to flow through the ship's communication system and out into space, where the Zephyrian computers were trying to understand it. Sir, Kethmer said, his voice filled with confusion. The analysis is complete, but I don't understand the results. What do you mean? Veltar asked. The sound patterns are definitely artificial, but they're not like any communication system we've ever seen. The mathematical complexity is incredible. It's as if they're manipulating quantum frequencies through pure audio waves. Veltar stared at his second in command. That's impossible. No primitive species could manipulate quantum fields. Our own scientists took centuries to develop that technology. I know, sir, but the readings are clear. Whatever they're doing, it's creating small changes in the quantum field around their ship. Veltar was quiet for a moment. This was unexpected. Maybe these humans were more advanced than they appeared. Double the size of our boarding party, he ordered, and bring the quantum field analyzers. I want to know exactly what they're doing. Over there, the Zephyrian shuttle was small but fast. It docked with the New Harmony without any problems. Captain Rodriguez and his senior officers were waiting in the docking bay when the airlock opened. The first thing that struck Alex was how tall the aliens were. Captain Veltar stood almost 7 feet high, with green scales covering his body and large golden eyes. His team of 6 officers looked similar, but each had slightly different colored scales. Welcome aboard the New Harmony, Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. Thank you for coming to help us. Veltar nodded politely. We are glad to assist. Please show us your engine room so we can determine how to help you. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Veltar noticed the sound was much clearer inside the ship. The beautiful, sad melody seemed to come from everywhere at once. His portable quantum analyzer was beeping steadily, showing readings that shouldn't be possible. "What is that sound?" he asked Alex. "Oh, that's Lisa playing her violin," Alex replied. "She's been playing music to help keep people calm during the crisis. She's in our cultural center." Violin? Veltar had never heard the word before. "It's a musical instrument," Alex explained. "She uses it to make music. It helps people feel better when they're scared or sad." Veltar was fascinated. He had never heard of a species that used sound for emotional therapy. The Zephyrians had music, but it was very different from what he was hearing now. When they reached the engine room, Jake was waiting with his tools and diagnostic equipment. He showed the aliens the damaged quantum drive and explained what had happened. Kethmer examined the human technology with interest. It was primitive but cleverly designed. "This can be repaired," he told Veltar, "but it will take time and some of our equipment." "Good," Veltar said. Then he turned to Alex. "I would like to meet the being who creates that sound, the one you call Lisa." Alex was surprised by the request, but he agreed. "Of course. She's just down the hall." As they walked toward the cultural center, Veltar's quantum analyzer continued to beep. The closer they got to the source of the music, the stronger the readings became. Whatever was happening, it was centered on the musician. When they entered the cultural center, Lisa was sitting alone on the stage, completely absorbed in her music. She didn't notice the group of aliens and humans watching her. The violin sang in her hands, creating a melody that seemed to touch something deep in everyone's hearts. Veltar stared at the small human female and her simple wooden instrument. According to his scanner, she was somehow manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe with nothing but sound waves and emotion. It was impossible, but it was happening right in front of his eyes. For the first time in his long career, Captain Veltar realized he had encountered something truly extraordinary. Dr. Elena Vasquez couldn't sleep. For the past 2 days, she had been working with the Zephyrian science team to understand what was happening on their ship. The alien equipment was far more advanced than anything humans had ever built, but the readings it showed were impossible to believe. She sat in her laboratory, staring at the data on her computer screen. Every time Lisa played her violin, the quantum field around the ship changed in ways that defied everything Elena knew about. Physics. The patterns were too complex and too organized to be random. Something was causing them, but she couldn't figure out what. "This can't be right," she muttered to herself, checking the numbers for the 100th time. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Jake Morrison entered, carrying a cup of coffee and looking as tired as she felt. "Any luck figuring out what's going on?" he asked, sitting down across from her desk. Elena shook her head. "The more I study this data, the less sense it makes. According to these readings, Lisa's violin is somehow creating quantum resonance patterns that should require a massive particle accelerator to produce." Jake leaned forward. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means she's doing something that should be impossible," Elena replied. "When she plays certain notes, the quantum field around the ship responds. It's like the music is talking to the universe in a language we don't understand." Meanwhile, in the cultural center, Lisa was unaware of the scientific excitement her music was causing. She sat on the stage, practicing a piece she had learned from her grandfather. It was called Sadness and Sorrow, and it always made her think of Homedog as she played. She noticed that Captain Veltar and his science officer, Kethmer, were sitting in the audience, watching her with intense concentration. They had been coming to listen to her play every day since they arrived. She found it strange that aliens would be interested in human music, but she was happy to have an audience. the melody flowed from her violin like water from a spring. Each note was pure and clear, carrying with it all the emotions she felt about their situation. The sadness of being lost in space, the sorrow of possibly never seeing their new home, but also the hope that somehow everything would work out. Unknown to Lisa, her music was doing something incredible. In the engine room, the damaged quantum drive was responding to her playing. Jake had noticed it first, but now the Zephyrian engineers were seeing it too. Every time Lisa played Sadness and Sorrow, the quantum field stabilized and the drive. Components showed signs of activity. Kethmer watched his portable scanner with amazement. "Captain," he whispered to Veltar, "the quantum resonance is getting stronger. I've never seen anything like this before." Veltar nodded, his golden eyes fixed on the small human woman and her wooden instrument. "Neither have I contacted the ship and have them send down the full science team. I want every sensor we have focused on this phenomenon." When Lisa finished playing, she looked up to see the two aliens watching her intently. She felt a little embarrassed by their attention. "Did you enjoy the music?" she asked politely. "It was extraordinary," Veltar replied, though he wasn't sure she would understand what he meant. "May I ask you about your instrument?" Lisa smiled and held up her violin. "This belonged to my grandfather. He made it himself back on Earth, using wood from trees that were over 300 years old. It's been in our family for generations." Kethmer's scanner beeped as he moved it closer to the violin. The quantum signatures were even stronger when he was near the instrument itself. "The wood," he said to Veltar in their own language. "There's something special about the wood." "What did he say?" Lisa asked, curious about their conversation. "He's interested in how your violin was made," Veltar explained. "We've never seen an instrument that creates such complex patterns." Lisa looked confused. "Patterns? It's just music." Before anyone could explain further, Dr. Vasquez came running into the cultural center. Her face was flushed with excitement, and she was carrying a tablet full of data. "Lisa," she called out, "we need to talk. Your music. It's doing something incredible." Elena quickly explained what they had discovered. She showed Lisa the quantum field readings and tried to explain how the violin was somehow affecting the space around them. "I don't understand," Lisa said, looking at the complex graphs and numbers. "How can music change anything? It's just sound." "That's what we thought too," Elena replied. "But according to our instruments, when you play certain pieces, especially that sad song, you're creating quantum effects that our most advanced technology can't produce." Captain Rodriguez arrived with more of the ship's senior staff. Word had spread throughout the new harmony that something important was happening. The cultural center was now full of people, both human and Zephyrian. "Show them," Elena said to Lisa. "Play Sadness and Sorrow again." Lisa felt nervous with so many people watching her, but she lifted her violin and began to play. The familiar melody filled the room, carrying with it all the emotions she had poured into it over the years. As she played, everyone watched the alien scanners and human instruments. The readings were incredible. The quantum field around the sea ship was stabilizing, and in the engine room, the damaged drive was showing more activity than it had since the accident. "My God," Jake whispered, watching the data stream on his tablet. "The quantum field is actually reorganizing itself." When Lisa finished playing, the room was silent for a moment. Then Kethmer spoke up, his voice filled with wonder. "In all our travels across the galaxy, we have never encountered a species that could manipulate quantum fields through pure artistic expression," he said. "This is unprecedented." Elena was thinking fast. "Lisa, I need you to try something. Can you play the song again, but this time focus on the damaged engine? Think about fixing it, about making it work again." Lisa looked uncertain. I don't know anything about engines. I'm just a musician. Just try, Elena encouraged her. Think about the engine working, about us getting to our new home safely. Lisa closed her eyes and began to play again. This time, she tried to imagine the broken engine coming back to life. She thought about all the families on the ship who were counting on reaching their new world. She thought about the children who would grow up under an alien sun, the music that came from her. Violin was different this time. It was still sad, but there was something else in it now. Hope, determination, the will to overcome impossible odds. In the engine room, something extraordinary happened. The quantum drive, which had been dead for days, suddenly came to life. Not fully functional, but alive. The quantum field generators began to hum with power, and the main display showed readings. That made the Zephyrian engineers gasp in amazement. It's working, Jake said, his voice barely a whisper. The engine is actually responding to her music. Dr. Vasquez was frantically taking notes, trying to record everything that was happening. This was the discovery of a lifetime, possibly the most important scientific breakthrough in human history. That Captain Valtar watched everything with growing amazement. His people had spent thousands of years developing technology to manipulate quantum fields. They had built massive machines and spent enormous resources to achieve what this small human woman was doing with a simple wooden instrument and pure emotion. How is this possible? He asked Elena. I don't know, she admitted, but I think it has something to do with human consciousness. Maybe our brains work differently than other species. Maybe we have some kind of natural connection to quantum fields that we never knew about. Lisa finished playing and opened her eyes. She could see the excitement on everyone's faces, but she still didn't fully understand what was happening. Did I do something good? She asked innocently. Elena laughed, tears of joy streaming down her face. Lisa, you might have just saved us all. Word spread through the new harmony like wildfire. Lisa's violin had somehow brought the quantum drive back to life, at least partially. People who had been preparing to die were now talking about hope again. But the real work was just beginning. Doctor Eleni Vasquez had set up a temporary laboratory in the cultural center. Zephyrian scientists worked alongside human researchers, their advanced equipment scattered around Lisa's simple music stand. The contrast was striking. Alien technology, worth millions of credits, sitting next to a wooden violin made in an old earth workshop. Play it again, but slower this time, Elena asked Lisa. We need to isolate which notes create the strongest effects. Lisa nodded and lifted her violin. She was getting tired from playing the same song over and over, but she understood how important this was. As she began the melody of sadness and sorrow, the alien scanners immediately came to life. Kethmer watched his instruments carefully. There, he said, pointing to a spike in the data. That note right there creates the strongest quantum resonance. Elena made notes on her tablet. It's an A sharp, held for exactly 2.3 seconds. But it's not just the note itself. There's something about how Lisa plays it, the emotion she puts into it. Captain Veltar had been studying the humans for 3 days now, and he was beginning to understand something remarkable. It's not just the music, he said to Elena. It's the combination of sound, emotion, and human consciousness. Your species appears to have a natural ability to interface with quantum fields through emotional expression. Meanwhile, other colonists had started to experiment with their own musical abilities. Danny Clark, the elderly man from the medical bay, had brought his old keyboard to the cultural center. When he played, the quantum scanner showed different patterns than Lisa's violin, but they were still measurable effects. Try playing something happy, Elena suggested to Danny. Danny smiled and began playing a cheerful tune he remembered from his childhood. The quantum readings changed immediately, showing faster, more energetic patterns. Fascinating, Kethmer observed. Different emotions create different quantum signatures. Happy music creates rapid, stable patterns. Sad music creates slower, deeper resonances. Maria Santos had also joined the experiments. Her beautiful singing voice created yet another type of quantum effect. When she sang lullabies to her children, the patterns were gentle and soothing. When she sang powerful ballads, the effects were strong enough to influence the ship's navigation systems. We're seeing 3 distinct types of quantum manipulation. Elena explained to Captain Rodriguez. Stringed instruments like Lisa's violin create precise, focused effects. Keyboard instruments create broader, more complex patterns. And human voices create the most versatile effects of all. The captain shook his head in amazement. Are you telling me that humans have been able to manipulate space and time through music this whole time? And we never knew it? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Helena replied. We never had the instruments to detect it before. The effects are too subtle to notice without advanced quantum sensors. Jake had been working with the Zephyrian engineers to understand how the music was affecting the ship's systems. It's like the violin is speaking directly to the quantum drive, he explained to Elena. When Lisa plays, the drive components start to align themselves. It's fixing itself, piece by piece. But how is that possible? Elena asked. Think about it, Jake said, warming to his theory. Everything in the universe is made of quantum fields. Matter, energy, space, time, it's all connected at the quantum level. Maybe human consciousness can tap into those connections in ways we never realized. Kethmer had been listening to their conversation. Your theory aligns with our oldest scientific texts, he said. Our ancestors wrote about a theoretical connection between consciousness and quantum reality, but we never found a species that could actually demonstrate it. Lisa had been taking a break, sipping water and resting her fingers. She overheard their conversation and felt overwhelmed by the implications. So you're saying that every time I've played music, I've been affecting quantum fields? She asked. Not just you, Elena replied. Probably every human musician throughout history. We just never knew it because we didn't have the technology to detect it. The thought was staggering. All the great composers and musicians of Earth, had they all been unknowingly manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe? Had their music been touching something deeper than anyone ever imagined? Captain Veltar had been in communication with his superiors in the Zephyrian collective. Their response had been immediate and intense. A full research fleet was being dispatched to study the humans, and Veltar had been ordered to keep the discovery secret from other alien species until they could understand it better. My people are very interested in your abilities, he told Elena privately. This could change everything we understand about the relationship between consciousness and reality. Elena felt a chill of worry. What does that mean for us? For our people? That depends, Veltar replied honestly. Some in the collective see this as a great opportunity for scientific advancement. Others see it as something that needs to be controlled and studied extensively. Before Elena could ask what he meant, Lisa began playing again. This time, she was trying a different piece, a complex composition that required all her skill and concentration. As she played, something unexpected happened. The lights in the cultural center began to flicker in rhythm with the music. The ship's artificial gravity wavered slightly, making everyone feel momentarily lighter. Most dramatically, the main view screen activated on its own and began showing images of space that were somehow more vivid and detailed than the ship's normal sensors could produce. What's happening? Danny asked, his voice filled with awe. Kethmer checked his instruments frantically. The quantum effects are amplifying, he reported. She's not just affecting the drive anymore. The music is interfacing with multiple ship systems simultaneously. Jake ran to his engineering station and pulled up the ship's status reports. "The navigation computer is coming online," he announced. "The sensors are functioning at 150% of normal capacity. Even the artificial gravity is stabilizing." Lisa continued to play, unaware of the chaos her music was creating throughout the ship. She was lost in the melody, pouring all her hopes and dreams into every note. She thought about their destination, the new world they were trying to reach. She imagined walking under an alien sun, breathing fresh air, starting a new life among. The stars dot as she played. The ship itself seemed to respond to her vision. The quantum drive hummed with increasing power. The navigation systems locked onto their original course. For the first time in days, the new harmony was truly alive again. When Lisa finally finished playing, the room was silent except for the gentle hum of fully functional ship systems. Everyone stared at her in amazement. "Lisa," Elena said softly, "I think you just did more than fix our ship. I think you showed us what it means to be human." Captain Veltar stood up, his expression serious. "Dr. Vasquez, Captain Rodriguez, we need to talk. What your species can do, it will change the balance of power in the galaxy. There are forces out there that would do anything to control this ability." Elena felt her stomach drop. "Are we in danger?" "That," Veltar replied, "depends on what we do next." Captain Veltar stood in his private quarters aboard the Windcatcher, staring at the communication device that connected him directly to the High Council of the Zephyrian Collective. The message he had received an hour ago was clear and troubling. A fleet of 12 ships was coming to take control of the human vessel and its passengers. "They are to be transported to Research Station Omega-7 for extensive study," the High Counselor had said. "This discovery is too important to leave in the hands of primitives. We must understand how they manipulate quantum fields before any other species learns of their abilities." Veltar had served the Collective faithfully for over 200 years. He had always followed orders without question. But something about the humans made him hesitate. In just a few days, he had seen them face death with courage and dignity. Their music wasn't just a tool for manipulating quantum fields. It was an expression of their souls. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his quarters. "Come in," he called. Kethmer entered, his usual calm demeanor replaced by obvious concern. "Captain, I've been monitoring communications from the Collective fleet. They're bringing containment units and research equipment. They plan to separate the humans and study them individually." "I know," Veltar replied quietly. "I received the same information." "Sir, with respect, I don't think that's right," Kethmer said. "I've been working with Dr. Vasquez and her team. These humans aren't just specimens to be studied. They're people with families, dreams, hopes. Their musical ability isn't something that can be extracted and replicated. It comes from their culture, their emotions, their very essence as a species." Veltar turned to face his science officer. "You're questioning the wisdom of the High Council?" "I'm questioning whether we have the right to destroy a species' freedom in the name of science," Kethmer replied. "The humans have shown us something beautiful and unique. If we cage them like laboratory animals, we'll lose the very thing that makes their ability special." Meanwhile, on the new harmony, Dr. Elena Vasquez was having her own difficult conversation with Captain Rodriguez. Jake Morrison and Lisa Park sat with them in the captain's ready room, all of them trying to process what Veltar had told them about the approaching Collective fleet. "So they want to take us away for experiments?" Lisa asked, her voice small and frightened. "That's what Captain Veltar believes," Elena replied. "He says his superiors see our musical abilities as something that needs to be controlled and studied." Jake pounded his fist on the table. "We're not laboratory rats. We're people trying to reach a new home and start new lives." Captain Rodriguez had been quiet throughout the discussion. Finally, he spoke. What are our options? Our ship is working again, but can we outrun an entire alien fleet? No, Elena admitted. Their technology is far more advanced than ours. If they want to catch us, they will. Then what do we do? Jake asked. Before anyone could answer, Lisa stood up. I have an idea, she said quietly, but you might think it's crazy. Right now, crazy might be our best option, the captain replied. Lisa took a deep breath. What if we don't try to run away? What if we try to show them that our abilities aren't something that can be stolen or controlled? What if we demonstrate that human music only works when it comes from the heart? Elena frowned. What do you mean? I mean, we give them exactly what they want, Lisa explained. We let them study us, but we show them that without our freedom, without our culture, without our emotions, the music becomes just noise. It was a dangerous plan, but as they discussed it, everyone began to see the wisdom in it. They would cooperate with the collective fleet, but they would also demonstrate that humanity's gift couldn't be taken by force. Captain Veltar was struggling with his own decision when his door chimed again. This time, it was Captain Rodriguez, requesting permission to come aboard the Windcatcher. Captain, Rodriguez said when they met in Veltar's quarters, we know about the fleet that's coming. We want to propose a partnership instead of submission. Veltar was surprised by the humans' directness. What kind of partnership? We'll share our abilities with your people willingly, Rodriguez explained. We'll teach you what we've learned about musical quantum manipulation. But in return, we want to remain free. We want to continue our journey to our new home. My superiors will never agree to that, Veltar replied. They see your abilities as too valuable to risk losing. Then help us prove that our abilities can't be taken by force, Rodriguez said. Help us show them that the gift of human music only works when it comes from free hearts and willing souls. Over the next 2 days, an extraordinary plan took shape. When the collective fleet arrived, the humans would demonstrate their abilities openly and honestly. But they would also show what happened when music was performed without emotion, without cultural context, without the freedom to express one's true feelings. Lisa spent hours practicing with Maria, Santos, and Danny Clark. They worked out a carefully choreographed demonstration that would prove their point. First, they would play beautiful, emotionally rich music that created powerful quantum effects. Then, they would play the same pieces mechanically, without feeling, and show how the quantum resonance disappeared. Dr. Vasquez worked with Kefmer to document everything they had learned about human musical abilities. They prepared detailed reports showing that the quantum effects were directly linked to emotional expression and cultural context. Jake and the engineering team prepared the ship for what might be their last performance as free humans. They made sure all systems were functioning perfectly so that there would be no doubt about the power of human music. When the collective fleet finally arrived, it was an impressive sight. 12 massive ships surrounded the new Harmony, their weapons powered, but not yet targeting the human vessel. The flagship, an enormous vessel called the Thought of Aegis, was 3 times the size of any ship the humans had ever seen. High Counselor Zethrak contacted Captain Veltar directly. Prepare the humans for transport, he ordered. We want the most gifted individuals brought to the research station immediately. With respect, High Counselor, Veltar replied, I request permission to demonstrate their abilities first. I believe you'll find the demonstration ... educational. Very well, Zethrak agreed, but make it quick. We have limited time. Lisa stood in the cultural center of the new Harmony, surrounded by the most advanced technology 2 civilizations could provide. Representatives from all 12 ships of the collective fleet were watching through video links. The fate of 50,000 humans rested on her ability to convince an alien empire that some things couldn't be taken by force. She lifted her violin to her shoulder and looked out at the stars through the cultural center's windows. Somewhere out there was the planet they had been traveling toward for 3 years. Somewhere out there was the new home they had dreamed of building. "This is our gift to the galaxy," she said simply. "This is what it means to be human." And then she began to play. Lisa closed her eyes and let the first notes of sadness and sorrow flow from her violin. But this time, the melody carried more than just the original sadness. It held the story of her people's journey through space, their near-death experience, and their hope for a new beginning. Across 12 collective ships, alien scientists watched their instruments with growing amazement. The quantum field readings were unlike anything they had ever recorded. The music wasn't just manipulating energy. It was reshaping the very fabric of space around the new Harmony. High Counselor Zethrak watched from his flagship, his cold eyes fixed on the data streaming across his screens. "Impressive," he said to his science advisor. "Begin preparations to transport the musician immediately." But Captain Veltar had anticipated this reaction. "High Counselor, if I may suggest watching the complete demonstration before making any decisions." As Lisa continued to play, Maria Santos stepped forward and began to sing. Her voice blended perfectly with the violin, creating harmonies that made the quantum effects even stronger. Danny Clark joined them on his keyboard, adding layers of complexity that the alien instruments could barely measure. The 3 humans played together, as if they had been practicing for years instead of days. Their music told the story of Earth, of forests and oceans, of cities and farms, of billions of people living and loving and dreaming under a yellow sun. The quantum effects grew stronger with each note, until space itself seemed to sing along. With them, Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the readings from her position near the stage. The quantum resonance was creating a stable field that extended far beyond the ship. For a brief moment, she detected something impossible. The music had actually opened a tiny rift in space-time, a glimpse of the technology that could revolutionize space travel. When the first song ended, the cultural center was filled with silence. Then Lisa, Maria, and Danny exchanged looks and nodded. It was time for the second part of their demonstration. This time, Lisa played the exact same piece, but without any emotion. She performed it mechanically, like a computer program running through musical data. Maria sang with perfect pitch but no feeling. Danny played the correct notes at the correct time, with no soul behind them. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The quantum readings dropped to almost nothing. The instruments that had been showing incredible energy patterns now registered barely any activity at all. The same notes, played by the same people with the same instruments, created almost no quantum effects whatsoever. Kethmer watched his scanners with fascination. "Captain," he whispered to Veltar, "the quantum resonance has dropped by over 90%. The music is technically perfect, but the effects are minimal. You see?" Veltar said into his communication device, addressing the entire collective fleet. "Their abilities cannot be separated from their emotions, their culture, their freedom to express themselves. Take away their humanity, and you take away their gift." High Counselor Zethrak was not convinced. "Perhaps they are simply pretending. Bring them aboard for proper testing." But Lisa wasn't finished. She had one more song to play, one final demonstration that would change everything. She lifted her violin again and began to play a piece she had never performed before, a melody that came directly from her heart, inspired by everything she had experienced in the past week. The music that flowed from her violin was unlike anything she had ever created. It spoke of wonder at meeting alien beings, of gratitude for rescue, of hope for friendship between species. It carried the dreams of 50,000 humans who wanted nothing more than to build a peaceful life on a distant world. As she played, something extraordinary happened. The quantum effects didn't just manipulate the ship's systems. They reached out into space itself. On every collective vessel, instruments detected the formation of a stable wormhole near the new Harmony's position. Impossible, breathed Zethrak as science advisor. She's creating a navigational tunnel through space-time. The energy requirements for such a feat should be enormous, but she's doing it with nothing but acoustic vibrations and emotional resonance. Jake watched his engineering displays with amazement. The ship's quantum drive was now functioning at 200% of its original capacity. The navigation computer was showing a direct route to their destination that would cut their travel time from months. 2 minutes. Captain Rodriguez, he called out. The wormhole is stable and leads directly to the Kepler system. We could reach our new home in less than an hour. But the most amazing thing wasn't the technology. It was the effect the music was having on the aliens themselves. Throughout the collective fleet, hardened soldiers and cold scientists found themselves moved by emotions they had never experienced before. The music was touching something universal, something that connected all conscious beings regardless of their species. Captain Veltar felt tears forming in his eyes, an alien emotion he had never experienced before. The music was showing him beauty and hope in ways his logical mind couldn't understand, but his soul recognized instantly. High Counselor Zethrak stood frozen on his bridge, watching the quantum readings and listening to the impossible beauty of human music. For the first time in his long life, he understood that some things were more valuable than power or control. When Lisa finally lowered her violin, the wormhole remained stable, held open by the lingering quantum effects of her performance. The entire collective fleet was silent, every being processing what they had just witnessed. High Counselor, Captain Veltar said quietly, I believe we have learned something important today. The human's gift cannot be taken or controlled. It can only be shared willingly, and only when it comes from free hearts. Zethrak was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communication device and spoke to the new Harmony. Captain Rodriguez, Dr. Vasquez, musician Lisa Park. Collective offers you a proposition. We're listening, Rodriguez replied cautiously. We will not detain your people or force you to come with us, Zethrak said. Instead, we offer a partnership. We will help you establish your colony on your new world. In return, we ask that you teach willing members of our species about your musical abilities, not as prisoners or test subjects, but as teachers and friends. Elena felt her heart leap with joy. You mean we can continue to our new home? More than that, Zethrak replied. We will help you build a civilization that can serve as a bridge between your people and ours. Your world will become a place where humans and aliens can work together to explore the musical nature of the universe itself. Lisa stepped forward, still holding her violin. Will other alien species be able to learn from us too? If they wish. Tio, Zethrak confirmed. Your music has shown us that consciousness and emotion are universal forces. This knowledge should be shared with all beings who are ready to understand it. Captain Rodriguez looked around at his people, seeing hope and excitement on every face. We accept your offer, he said as the new Harmony prepared to enter the wormhole that Lisa's music had created. Captain Veltar sent a final message to the human ship. You have given us a great gift, he said. You have shown us that the universe is not just made of matter and energy, but of beauty and emotion as well. Thank you for teaching us how to listen to the music of the stars. Lisa stood at the observation deck, watching as their ship approached the wormhole. Behind them, the collective fleet was already spreading the news throughout the galaxy. Soon, beings from hundreds of worlds would come to learn about the humans who could make the universe sing. The new Harmony entered the wormhole with Lisa's violin still echoing through its corridors. The sadness and sorrow of their journey had transformed into something beautiful, a harmony that would connect worlds and species for generations to come. As they emerged near their new sun, Lisa began to play again. This time, her music carried only joy and hope. Somewhere in the distance, she could see the blue and green world that would become humanity's new home, and she knew that their greatest adventures were just beginning.